Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Break Vape podcast, episode number 30. I am your host, Tami Ernst. I am so glad to have you guys listening in from all over the world. Thank you so much. You guys are in for a treat today. I have a guest on the show. This is Tina. She is a client of mine. She is an amazing wife, mom, artist. She's absolutely phenomenal. She just went through the program, and guess what? She is living a vape-free life. I'm so glad to have her here with me. And funny thing, we both live in Texas, actually, outside of Houston, in different suburbs. So I'm in a suburb, she's in a suburb, and even though we're both in Houston, we are still 50 minutes away from each other. And we did the entire program together via Zoom and didn't meet in person until after the program was done. Now she's a great friend. She's awesome. She's amazing. And I am ecstatic to have her on here. So let's dive in. Hi, Tina. How are you doing today?
Hi, Tami. I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here. I am so glad to have you here in person.
Yay.
You guys were sitting in Tina's kitchen. She has this beautiful country picnic table. Everything's white in here. The pool is in the background. It's a beautiful day. You might hear her cat jumping around.
Or the dog. Hopefully not.
Right? Or we might hear the dog barking. But we have just been sitting around drinking coffee, I think chit-chatting for a good...
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, good at least half hour before this. And so I had asked Tina some questions just so we can kind of give it some structure, because you've never been on a podcast before, right?
I haven't. I'm quite nervous actually, but I'm sure it'll be great. So.
It'll be great. So we thought maybe we'd give it some structure, even though it's just going to be a really casual chit chat. I'm sure we probably will go off on some tangents because it's just kind of more fun that way.
Exactly.
So how did vaping show up in your life before you started coaching with me?
Okay, good question. So I'd like to say it was about 5 years ago. Particularly difficult time in my life. My mum had just died. I had lost both my husband's parents and my mum actually in a 10-month period. My middle child was having some mental health difficulties. My eldest daughter at the time vaped, and I tried it a few times secretly, sneakily. And it wasn't long at all before I realised that I was going to go out and buy my own. So it was almost like an immediate addiction. Nothing that I'd ever really experienced before, not even with cigarettes when I was younger, you know. So, that was it. My eldest daughter left it laying around on her bed. I tried it, and then I tried it again, and I tried it again. And then I went and bought my own disposable vape, and that was basically it. Yeah.
Before you knew it, you were hooked and...
Absolutely hooked like nothing else I've ever experienced.
It does just really grab you.
Yeah, it really did grab me by the throat, and there began a 5-year process of trying to give up. You know, it wasn't like I vaped for 3 years and only tried to give up for 2. I just knew right from the beginning it was the wrong thing to do, and I hated it. I hated myself for doing it. So it was, 5 years of agony.
For so many of us out there too, we do vape in secret. A lot of us do. So whether you're hiding it from a boss at work, or hiding it in the bathroom from a friend or a partner, for those of us that aren't just right out doing it socially as a social connection, a lot of us are hiding it from all kinds of different people in our lives. So I know how that goes.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be a lonely struggle, for sure.
Yeah, and mine wasn't a social thing. It was very much hidden. For a lot of the time, my husband didn't know I was doing it. My children didn't know I was doing it. And as you know, Tami, vaping is something that you can do in the bathroom, you can do in the car, you can do in any area in the house, and nobody can smell it. So it's easy to be deceitful and secretive, and it's not a good feeling.
It's easy to even without the deceit and secrecy, it's just easy to do it all the time. I think that's why it's so much worse than cigarettes, because it's always available. You don't smell like nasty cigarettes or anything
your hair
like
doesn't
that.
smell, your clothes don't smell.
Right, and it comes in these fun flavors. Well, seemingly fun, right? We know that they're filled with diacetyl and 2,000 horrible chemicals and all the harm that they cause. So I was, I think Tina had found me on social media, and that's how we initially started chatting. Let's go into that. How did we originally start chit-chatting?
I think I'd followed a couple of quit vaping groups on Facebook, and I think your name came up, and you were looking for some people to do a project that you were doing, and I just happened to click into you and think, oh, I wonder who that is, and before I knew it, I'd looked through your profile and found out that you were actually, a coach to help people stop vaping, and I was really surprised to find someone that actually had that role, because I'd looked so hard for somebody that could help in that sort of area, and coaches were hard to find. So it was great to find out that you were in the same city as me, which was an added bonus. Yeah, so we had a Zoom call, and instant connection, got on really well. I could see Tami was, such an easy person to speak to, a caring person. And I knew immediately that you were just the sort of person that I wanted to work with.
I was so glad
delighted.
to meet. Still delighted.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we had that first meeting too, that you reached out, because I think it just takes so much confidence just to make that initial phone call, or, well, not phone call in our case, but, a connection on social media or emailing in or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it is hard. And I think, I'm not a young teen vaping. I'm 54. And, I had this, I kind of thought that you don't get mature people that vape, It's all teenagers or young 20s or 30s that are maybe doing it. And so I had the shame around that as well. So reaching out was quite hard to begin with, to say, like, I'm 54 and I'm vaping. It felt kind of silly. But, it was an eye-opener for me, for Tami to say, you are actually not alone.
Yeah, and I'm so glad
there's
that
no age restriction on this.
There's really not, and I'm so glad that you shared that, because, we do have listeners in 22 or 23 different countries at the moment, and I'm in the socials and everything, and social media, and I see people from all different ages and walks of life that all have this vaping addiction in common, because big tobacco really does not discriminate. They come after our kids for sure in a strong way, but they don't really care how old you are. They just care about your money and that you buy their products.
Yeah.
So Tina and I had gotten on a Zoom call, and she asked me how the Break Vape program works. And I said, well, it works like this. We have 8 sessions that we'll go through to get you from not even knowing how you're going to quit vaping to living a vape-free life in under a month. And we do 2 sessions a week. Each session is a 1-hour Zoom call. And then she asked how much the price was, and I told her the cost for the entire program is $1,500. And we'll get her response on that in a second. So we went into also why it's priced that way. So for you guys that have been listening for a long time, we've done many exercises where I ask you to go in and physically write down and calculate out how much money you've been spending on vapes. And one of the exercises we've done, and Tina and I have definitely done, is find out how much you're spending per week, per month, and per year. And I have never seen someone average spending, $1,500 a year on vapes as a made up, like, lowest number. I think the lowest number I've actually seen somebody report was like $1,800 a year or something. So that's just a little, verbiage around explaining how the pricing works and why it is important that you make an investment that is in line with how much you've been spending on vapes, because then you take it more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make that investment based on also your future health. You know, and let's face it, these things are, you know, killing us really. So, you know, I wasn't shocked to see the price was 1,500. I've seen a lot of coaching courses on other sort of wellness and health things, and that is kind of where the coaching courses are usually priced. And you know, it's worth absolutely every penny. You get Tami's support right from the get go, and it's not just a support on your Zoom call, you know, that you have with her every week. It's really support whenever you need it. You know,
Yeah,
she
we
was
did
always
too.
there, texting me,
we
cheering me on. She was really like my biggest cheerleader, and that really, really made a big difference. You know, there were days where I was like, Tami, I'm feeling really bad today. I'm really sweating, and I just feel like I want to vape. And that right at the beginning, and you know, the amount of support that I got from her in that moment was just really, really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did do a lot of contact
Yeah.
outside of the actual Zoom calls.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's worth every penny. You really get what you pay for. It's a very structured program. It goes deep into things that maybe you wouldn't think it might go into, which are so important and pivotal to you being able to stop.
Yeah, we were. I'm sure we'll touch more on this later too, but we were actually just talking about that earlier about how the program is so much more than a how to quit vaping program. It's kind of like a how to quit vaping as the result, but there's so many more things that we learn and take into account. So if you guys go back and listen to episode number 29, we say that vaping is basically a symptom of a larger systemic problem. And so we have to get the root of that problem. And we dive into a lot of that with from a strategy based coaching program. And what do you think, Tina? Do you think quitting was as hard as you thought it was going to be?
I thought it was going to be hard, really hard. It was a lot easier with your course than I thought it would be. I think I'd quit so many times. I can't think about how many times I've quit and how many vapes I've thrown away and how many others I've gone to buy 2 hours later. You know, I've thrown them in trash cans and gone and got them out. You know, I've tried patches, gum, lozenges. I tried hypnosis, acupuncture. Nothing touched it. But from day one with your course, I just felt that the ease of being able to be, now I'm accountable for myself and I'm accountable to Tami, and this is it. We can do this together. And I think that was the difference. And I never felt like, you know, I've got to do this alone, because it is a lonely journey trying to fight this thing on your own.
It is. And I think that we make vaping a very big, scary thing that we put on a pedestal. And what makes it that scary is that it's the fear of the unknown. And then if we do quit for a little bit, it's always still in the background, and the decision just hasn't been made that we're definitely quit for good.
Absolutely. It's like, how am I going to manage these crises in my life without this like emotional crutch that I've had for so long? But which is in fact fooling us. You know, we think it's helping with the anxiety and maybe the depression that we're going through because of deeper reasons, but it's actually you know, making those things worse.
For sure. Do you think, and the next question we have laid out is what made it easier? I don't want to answer it for you, but I do want to throw in there that from, you know, day one, we've got you creating a quit plan and going into everything that you have as a trigger, what you're going to have as a backup, what you're going to do in the moments where you're having severe urges.
Yeah. And even simple things like, you know, walking my dog a certain way and vaping.
That's right.
You know, let's change the walk.
Yeah,
you know, it's just
we did change up how you walked your dog. Can I tell that story
real
quick? So Tina has this adorable little dog. What kind of dog?
Well, she's a bit of a mix. I think she's Basenji and Chihuahua, so a bit of a strange mix.
She's so cute. I was just petting her earlier. So Tina had this walk path that she would take to walk her dog, and then instead of keeping a vape on her the whole time, she had hidden one in. You remember that?
In the crack in the wall.
Yeah, in a fence, or was it?
Yeah.
So she always had her go-to kind of like vape spot where she would stop and take a little vape hit on her walking her dog route. So we completely changed up her morning routine and which way that she was going to walk her dog and all of that.
Yeah, and this is little things like that help, and you know, hiding it in a fence, and you know, I mean, there's so much shame around that, you know.
You would think that there is, but there's nothing to be ashamed about, because that is just
what
the
you
icky
do.
part of vaping. That's what this addiction will cause you to do.
It's true.
You know, you hide them, and I used to get them out of the trash once I threw them away.
Yeah, it's like any addiction. You become, you know, you become a liar. You become deceitful. You become sneaky, and you know, that just all really adds to your sort of feeling of self-loathing. Really.
I think from day one we said that we are done with shame.
Yes,
we're just going to decide.
Yeah, and judgment.
Yeah,
went out
and
the
judgment.
window.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just going to decide that all the time that we're going to work together is going to be from a zero judgment, zero shame place.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting rid of that right from the get-go really helped, because there is a lot of judgment and a lot of shame around it. There certainly was with my situation, because I was being very deceitful and hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But just having those strategies right from the beginning of the coaching program, where we could break that hand-to-mouth habit.
Oh yeah, that was a big
like
one.
you know, with the oxygen canisters, and you know, the different strategies that we put in place to help me break that, because I had a really big problem with like the oral fixation, because I was doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. There was very little time when I wasn't vaping. So breaking just that part of the habit really from the get-go really helped. Yeah. So that's a really important part of the program.
So we're talking about this oral hand-mouth fixation that all of us as smokers and vapors do and have, because we've been soothed from the time that we were a baby to suck on things like pacifiers or eat or have something in our mouth. And when you do this, you know, mechanism of smoking, or, you know, you're breathing in, inhaling calms your parasympathetic nervous system. But when you're vaping, you're inhaling. So you're trying to do it as a thing to relax, but then you're just inhaling the chemicals.
Yeah.
And so I never ever recommend, for you guys out there who are trying to quit and you need a crutch, is what we call these things, like a patch, a lozenge, or whatever like that. I never recommend that you do a zero nicotine vape, because one of the biggest things that we've got to break is that hand to mouth soothing kind of gesture. So what I do with Tina and everyone, we get oxygen canisters and have those handy. So how did you feel walking around with a handheld oxygen canister for a few days?
To start with, to be quite honest, I thought, you know, this is kind of odd. What really how will this help? But, you know, I bought a menthol one.
Mm-hmm. The flavored ones.
Yeah, I never tried them before. And actually having a, you know, especially in the car, and having a burst of that menthol oxygen every now and then was really helpful.
Yeah.
It was really helpful and quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So although it's still something that you're doing, you know, orally, it was definitely breaking that whole pattern with the vape.
Yeah. Well, and I think it gave your brain that little hit of dopamine that it was looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that
a healthy hit.
That way it just makes the quitting process easier. So it's already hard enough. Why make it harder than it needs to be?
Exactly. So things like that, and you know, candies and gums and things, it was really helpful. Yeah. Right from the word go.
So how does vaping show up in your life now?
I think for the first time ever, probably since I started 5 years ago, I feel like so strong with my ability to just not be fazed by it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always used to buy these banana flavored vapes from the gas station, disposable, probably the worst type you can buy. And, you know, just at one time, just going into the gas station, the smell of the gas station triggered me.
Yep.
You know, or smelling somebody vaping that was walking past me or something. Now I really feel ugh whenever I go in the gas station, I see them there, or I smell someone vaping. It's just like, oh, I remember that disgusting feeling of just a tight chest, you know, racing heart, anxiety, self-loathing, and I feel really strong. I feel like I could literally have one here on the table and just, it wouldn't faze me.
I'm so proud of you. You did so great.
I would never have imagined that in a million years, because I was that person that it was glued to my hand, you know.
I was too. And then, you know, I think we just, you know, with the program, we get to this point to where you're just so disgusted with vaping because we learned so much about it. And to the point where, like you were just saying now, it's just the thought of going back to it is, you know, just...
Yeah, it's awful. And
problem.
The program goes deep into, you know, the environmental things and the injuries that people have had and the respiratory diseases, you know, the big tobacco industry and how we're being fooled and how our children are being fooled. And, you know, it part of the program gives you that much bigger picture.
Yeah,
which did help me as well.
So every module that we do 8 modules, and each module I send out the program information and what we're going to go over so that there's not any guesswork. And Tina, I probably gave you so much homework.
It was good. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a huge amount, but there was enough to reinforce what we were learning every week.
And to keep your hands busy and your brain busy.
Yeah, and it's also a bit like journaling. When you're writing it down, you're kind of offloading things. And we talked about doing that and dumping what we're feeling onto the paper, but also learning new things that we're being taught every week, and writing down was just reinforcing it. So the homework was really good. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think towards the beginning and the middle, a big part of that homework was getting very curious about the big tobacco industry and really what's going on. And so I had you look up specific articles of people who, I mean, people have died from vapes exploding in their faces.
That one really, really got me and resonated.
That one just made me want to cry. That was a guy from Texas, actually, a young man. You know, we learned a lot about EVALI, which is e-cigarette vaping associated lung injury, and how many people are dying from EVALI. We looked into the economics of big tobacco and how manipulative they are. And that's just informational things. That's not even the actual like work that we did.
That's not the deep bit. But that's funny that you should say that, because some of those bits that we learned about big tobacco really, really had an effect. You know, like the like you say, the guy that had the vape explode in his mouth, and
it severed his jugular.
Yeah,
it's awful.
And I mean, that's terrible. I'm horrified on, you know, so many levels.
I am too, and we're both moms, you know, and I think now that we're on the other side of our vaping addictions, we can really, you know, clearly see just, you know, how is this going to impact the next generation and our kids and our kids' environment.
And how that target market right now is young kids, you know. That's their target. And they're making, you know, the vapes are looking more glamorous and shiny and colourful, and the flavours are being improved, and, you know, the marketing is showing celebrities we all know and love vaping and smoking, and you know, it's like it's a crisis when you think of how many teenagers, and not just teenagers, are vaping. You know, like you told me that 41 million globally of these vapes are thrown away a day.
Yeah, so on average right now, there's about 41 million people in the world who vape or use e-cigarettes. So if everybody threw one away a day, that would be $41 million a day. And you guys can do the math on that. We've actually done the math on that to write down the number of how many vapes that would be a year without anywhere to properly dispose of them. And I'll just go into that quickly. So because you can't, with disposables, actually break them apart and without putting yourself at risk for injury or some kind of fire. So to take them apart the way that the FDA advises to actually be able to responsibly throw them away is almost impossible. And also, who would even spend that much time and energy on trying to throw them away like that? But when I think about the kiddos out there and the parents, for my parents out there, I know this was a huge deal with me, because when you're vaping, you're just so addicted to it that you can make, at least I did. When I say you, maybe I just mean me. I would make every excuse in the world of why I could vape around my daughter, and somehow magically it would just be okay that she wouldn't wind up doing it later on in life. And you're just, I was just fooling myself, because kids pick up on what we model for them.
Absolutely. And my eldest daughter, she's 22 nearly, but she vapes, and she vaped, before me, because that was the reason I picked one up. So she was young. She was 16, 17. And I think it's down to the education, isn't it? We've got to start educating the kids in middle school about vaping and the dangers, because, when I talk to my 21-year-old and try and tell her that you shouldn't do it, and it's going to cause respiratory problems that may be irreversible, it's okay, mum. I don't think that kids or even young 20s know the dangers. They don't want to know sometimes, but I don't think they are given the opportunity to be educated from a younger age. They usually start around 15, 16, becoming curious about these things. So, having somebody that could go into schools and educate the children about the dangers at a younger age would be great.
I totally agree.
Maybe it's your next job, Tami.
Well, I was talking with some educators here in Houston in our school district, and they're seeing kids in middle school vaping, and it's a big problem. And for our kiddos and our young adults, your brain, the human brain, doesn't finish developing until about 25 years of age.
Absolutely.
So for a young child or a young adult to be vaping, it's causing so much damage in a mind and a physical human brain that isn't even finished developing yet.
Absolutely, and creating addiction from a very young age. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
It is. So let's see. So that covers what question were we on?
All of our structured interview here.
That was one of the tangents we were talking about. I think we were going to talk about, what do you think about big tobacco now after looking into the industry during our time together? And I think we definitely covered that. Let's see. Do you feel like the amount of money you paid for coaching with me is worth the results that you got?
100%. I literally can't impress. I would pay it all again, no problem. I finally feel free of what I can only describe as a devil on my shoulder. It felt like I was choking, and I just could not get my head above water for 5 years. I just could not do it. Every time I tried, I failed. And it's an absolutely amazing feeling to be free. And it's an investment that I feel for sure is worth absolutely every penny, because I've never, found a program like it.
I'm over here doing a happy dance for for you, Tina, not because of the investment amount, but just because I know that liberating feeling, and I talk about it on the podcast all the time. And I don't even know that you can put a price on that. And it really is just the most liberating gift and feeling.
When you finally feel that you've got the edge on it and you're free. And don't get me wrong, the first few days of anything like this is hard. But, with the strategies and the coping skills that you get from Tami, those, 72 hours are made so much more doable. And I didn't think it was going to be I didn't think it was as hard as I thought it might be the first few days.
I could see that because I remember you being about 2 weeks in, maybe, and just doing fantastic and
feeling great.
When we had first Zoomed, you weren't looking so great. You looked kind of sad.
Kind of worn out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, 2 weeks into it, you've got the windows open in your bedroom, and you had just come in from a walk, and you were smiling, and you just looked like you were glowing, and you looked so happy.
And I think we talked at the time, Tami, about how a really important factor with it is it's like a domino effect. So I was vaping, and because I was vaping, I was up all night to vape, so I wasn't sleeping. Because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't making the best choices with food, eating too much sugar, drinking energy drinks, not working out, So it was like a whole cycle of just feeling rubbish. And breaking and getting on top of the vaping and getting the edge on it, everything else started to fall into place. And I started to sleep, and I started to eat well and work out and walk the dog and feel great. And, it really just catapulted me into that sort of next phase of my health and wellness.
Absolutely. And I think it just takes that whole systemic issue of addiction. And when you're on the other side of it, you will see improvement in every area of your life. We talk about health, wealth, relationships, spirituality all the time, and major improvements there. And I think it does absolutely help in every other area. And we learn skills that, okay, well, vaping's not the symptom anymore. What's your symptom now? Now let's handle that one.
Absolutely. And as you go, it brings up different things for
sure. I remember seeing you 2 weeks in, and you looked so beautiful and glowy, and we were talking about how looking at you 2 weeks prior, it almost looked like looking back at an old high school yearbook.
I think my eyes became brighter, my skin became better, I was well slept, I just felt well, and I hadn't felt like that for a long time. And so many things go hand in hand with vaping. Your self-worth is low, your self-esteem is low, because who wants to be doing it? Nobody really wants to be doing it. And when you feel like that, you don't feel motivated to really look after yourself in any other area, really. So it has been incredible to see just in a short period of time.
And I think it took so much skill building in areas that we are not taught, that we're actually taught the opposite of in our society and culture all across the world, actually. So I haven't really on the podcast yet gotten much into buffering, which is a term that basically explains like anything that you do to buffer is something that you're doing to not feel your feelings. So that could be vaping, smoking, over drinking, over eating, over watching Netflix, over exercising, over working. And it's an avoidance of feelings that you've got to feel. And Tina had been going through a pretty rough time, and we really had to face
I was doing a lot of buffering.
Yeah. We really had to get to the bottom of buffering and identify what negative thoughts and emotions you were feeling, and then learn how to sit with those and actually practice redirecting them into positive.
Absolutely. It's like any addiction, there's pain beneath it usually. And, we really had to dig deep and look at why I was using the things that I was using as emotional crutches. I was buffering, and I was probably buffering quite a lot. I was drinking too much wine, which then obviously was weakening my resolve to not vape. I was eating the wrong foods, scrolling too much on my phone. There was a lot of buffering going on, and all that has changed.
I know. I think that it's just so normal for us to kind of, these days, right? Oh, you don't want to feel an emotion here. Have a snack and play on your phone. And, maybe vape or drink.
Numb out for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Well, so another tangent. Let's see here. I think some of these questions overlap, but that's okay. Would you recommend my coaching program to other people who are struggling with vaping?
Gosh, yes, I would. Struggling alone is really hard, and as we've discussed before, it's often a private struggle. I mean, there wasn't really anyone that I could go to, even close friends, and say, hey, I'm vaping and I'm struggling to give up. I didn't feel like I could, not because they weren't good friends, I just felt there was a lot of shame around it. So often it's a private struggle, and I would just say Tami is not only someone who's been there, which is like really important. You can totally relate to everything that your clients are talking about, but someone that's got the answers, the strategies, the skills to know how to stop. And I would just 100% recommend the course.
Do you think thank you for all of that. I have been there. It's been oh my gosh, one of the hardest things. I've had the displeasure of quitting in my life.
Yeah.
And now I'm very passionate about teaching other people how to quit as well, so we can have that amazing liberating feeling that we were talking about earlier. And do you think that those results that you have are repeatable for other people, or if there's other people out there that are kind of saying, well, maybe Tina did it, but I can't?
Tina thought the same. She thought when I kind of found out about Tami, I was like, well, I can't be helped. I'm that person that vapes all the time. I get out of bed to vape. And then I found out that, lots of people do the same thing. And however, extreme you think your problem is with vaping, this program can help you and is totally repeatable. I felt like I was beyond help. Nobody could help me. I'd tried so many times. And I'd even succeeded for a certain amount of time sometimes, but always gone back when things got hard or when crisis hit or when things became stressful. But it's so important to do the course and learn the strategy so that when you hit those times where you would usually go and buy a vape, that you don't do it. And anyone can do this program and have results.
Well, you just knocked it out of the water. I'm so proud of you. You did amazing. But to add to what you were saying, I mean, one of the strategies that we also do, so in the beginning we make a quit plan, and then throughout the course we also make a relapse plan.
Absolutely.
And then we pad that relapse plan with the zero judgment, zero shame cycle policy.
Absolutely. And you may relapse. I haven't relapsed and I don't intend to relapse, but I know that if for any reason I ever did, then, there's no judgment. You're taught on the program, there's no judgment. You just go straight back to step one.
That's right.
And get straight back on the horse. And thankfully, I don't think that I will relapse, and I haven't. So.
Well, I don't think you will either. You're doing amazing. Because, we're to that point now. You're to that point now where vapes are just, you're completely disgusted by them. So it's really difficult to go and relapse back into something when you're completely on the other side of it.
Yes.
But I love to have that relapse plan in there, though, just as like a safety blanket.
Yeah. And it gives you that little bit of comfort to know it's there.
Yeah. And then I put this question in here because, right when we finished Tina's last session towards the end of her program, which was, a couple months ago now?
Yeah.
I feel like, a couple months ago. I'm always looking for feedback, from clients to see if there's something that they didn't like about the program or something that they really did like and want more of. So I genuinely wanted to know I put this question in here because I wanted to ask Tina, did you feel like you were always heard, seen, and genuinely taken care of while we were coaching together?
Oh, totally, 100%. I mean, Tami is a really wonderful, caring coach. She's a really good listener. She's walked this path herself, as we've said, so there's, nothing that she doesn't understand. Just totally felt that she'd got me and that I was supported. And that's not really a feeling that I'd had before. So absolutely, 100%.
I'm so glad to know that. Yeah, I think your feedback on that initially too was that there wasn't really anything that you didn't like about the program.
No.
I had gotten feedback before that there was a little too much homework.
No, I thought the homework was fine. I mean, we're not talking pages and pages of homework. It was like a couple of pages, but it was all very important that side of it was completed.
Yes, doing the work is essential. The prompts and the homework that are covered is the way that you really dig in deep and get to the root cause of the addiction in the first place. So that way we can deal with that and then positively affect change in all the other areas of life as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is there anything else about coaching with me that you'd like to share, or words of encouragement for people out there that maybe are on the fence about?
Yeah. Firstly, it's a course that, although it's an investment, for sure, it's worth every penny, and could save your life. Sometimes, sometimes vaping is a very lonely journey. It's filled with a lot of shame and feelings of self-loathing. It's just not an easy thing to give up alone. And I think we only need to look at some of the support sites for vaping and Facebook forums and things like that to see the struggle. But you can do it. If I can do it, then you can do it. And from day one, Tami made me feel like we could do it together. I wasn't on my own anymore. And sometimes that's, just the support you need to put your first foot on the rung of the ladder. And her support and help and the accountability that I felt were just second to none.
I'm so proud of you, Tina. You've done so
Thank you,
amazingly
Tami.
well. I knew you could do it.
I'm glad you did.
I had confidence in you 100% of the time.
Yeah. I'm just thrilled every day that, I don't reach for that vape and I don't need to go and buy one, and I don't need to rush away from coffees and lunches with friends to go and sneak in the bathroom to vape. And, even things like, I wouldn't spend time with my children. I would go and lay on my bed in my bedroom just so I could vape and things like that. It's a terrible predicament and situation to be in. So, if I can do it, you can do it. And,
Absolutely. It is terrible, and I'm so glad that you're coming on the podcast today to share your story, because you're letting other people know that you're not alone in this. And
absolutely, you're not alone, and you feel like you're the only one that's doing it, or the only one that's doing it the way you're doing it, and you really are not alone. You're one of millions who are struggling, and with this unique course, you can really make a difference in your life.
For sure. I'm so honored to be your coach, and
I'm honored to have you as a friend.
And to now be friends. And I just had to give you a big hug.
Oh, I love you.
I love you too. And we'll have to meet up for coffee again real soon.
For sure.
I want to let our listeners know though, if anybody, I asked Tina earlier before we hit record, if anybody has more specific questions or would like to ask her any questions about coaching, if she would like to give out her email, and she said yes. So Tina, would you please let our listeners know where they can find you?
Absolutely. So you can email me at Tina, Tina, Hunt, HUNT, at outlook.com. That's Tina Hunt1 at outlook.com. Oh, I've said that wrong.
Oh, that's okay.
Start again. Tina Hunt 1 at outlook.com.
Okay, great. And I'll drop that in the show notes later. Also, so thank you guys for listening in today. And like Tina and I were saying, if anybody's out there and you're struggling, especially if you feel like you're struggling by yourself, please reach out. Send an email to hello@breakvapes.com. That's hello@breakvapes with an s.com, so that we can chit chat about how vaping is showing up in your life and make a plan to have you live vape free. And before we wrap up, Tina, is there anything else that you want to add?
Just that you can do it. You can do it. Reach out to Tami, get on the program, and make a difference in your life. You can do it.
Yes, you can, definitely. All right, guys, that's it for this episode, and we will see you next week.